Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mr. Higgs podcast. We are here getting it in once again, time and time again. So, as you know, I am a football fan. So, I love high school football, college football, and pro football. And so, what I'm going to do for those of you who are interested in different kinds of content, I decided to start breaking up the shows. I'm going to talk college football on some, pro football on others, throw in some recruiting here and there, and then I'm going to put it in the bio, put it out there, so what I'm talking about, so you can consume the content that you are most interested in. Now, watch them all, because quite frankly, they're all great. But just specifically, I'm trying to make the shows a little more compact and also make them a little shorter. So the main reason I wanted to get up with y'all today is for the Colorado-Nebraska game. This was a big game, not necessarily as big as the initial game that nobody thought they were going to win. Let's just get that out the way. Those of y'all who are, chest all big and everything for Colorado, y'all Colorado fans just came out the woodwork, beating your chest like you all thought this was going to work. Nobody thought this was going to work the way that it did, except for the handful of people that were in Boulder. And for those people who believed it from the beginning and called that game from the beginning, I give you all the kind of credit in the world, because honestly, I didn't have the balls to call that game. I thought it was going to be close. I thought 20 points was really egregious. I wish I had bet it, but I did not. So, no courage on my part. So, by the time that game was over, the performance of the teams in the week before is going to affect the lines the next week. So Nebraska lost to Minnesota to 14-10. And then Colorado wins their game 45-42. So the betting line before the season for that game of Colorado-Nebraska was 8.5, favorite minus 8.5 for Colorado. For Nebraska, meaning they thought that Nebraska was going to win. By the time that game started, like right before kickoff, it was 3.5 for Colorado. Like, the betting had gone so far that it had gone down from we think Nebraska is going to win by 8.5 to we think Colorado is going to win by 3.5. That's what the power of the Deion Sanders effect and everything he's done with that coaching staff, with those kids. I mean, he's just honestly just done an excellent job. So let's get into a couple of the game stats. So again, 454 total yards. I'm a little dyslexic. 454 total yards, most of that passing. They still can't run the ball. That offensive line is still a work in progress. 24 first downs, 10 out of 18 on third down efficiency. Just some really solid now good things on offense, and only one fumble loss. That was our only turnover. Nebraska. They only had 119 total passing yards, rushed the hell out of the ball, which they should. That's not the strength of the Colorado defense, and that would have been my strategy going in if I was Colorado. I would have ran the ball, and I would have taken a lot of time off the clock, kept the ball out of Shedeur Sanders' hands, and given us the opportunity to keep the game close at the end. It was a good strategy. But the third down efficiency was terrible. We'll get into why in a few minutes. 63 total plays. Not terrible in penalties, but turnovers. Had 3 fumbles lost and 1 interception. That is egregious. Nobody can win games when you turn over the ball the amount of time that they did. Shedeur Sanders did his thing again, threw for almost 400 yards and 2 touchdowns. They did not run the ball particularly well. We've already talked about that. Don't expect them to. Xavier Weaver, 10 catches for 170 yards. I mean, I think everybody... You're going to try to key on somebody. Jimmy Horn went off in the first game. Actually, they all kind of went off in the first game. And they had 4 different receivers that had over 100 yards receiving. That is ridiculous. And then but Jimmy Horn, I think, had the most receiving yards last game. This time it's Xavier Weaver. When you have a bunch of receivers out there doing your thing, you can't pick just one to try to stop. And that is a special thing about this offense. Really spreads the ball around quite well. So, one of the things that I wanted to get into about this was that, first of all, the defense really stepped up. The defense was a liability. They gave up 42 points the week before. They cannot win a lot of games having that kind of problem. Their tackling in the first game was egregious. I was screaming and hollering. They gave up the defensive touchdown. They gave up a special teams touchdown. They gave up a lot of long runs, and that to me is just a death knell. If somebody can just run the ball and get like big chunk yards on the ground, of course you're going to continue to do that. I didn't see nearly the kind of long runs that I saw in the first game against TCU. Tackling got a lot better. Outside of that, though, I feel like that Nebraska defense played really well in the first half and gave Nebraska an opportunity to be in this game. And Jeff Sims, quarterback transfer from Georgia Tech, really let his team down. And quite frankly, Matt Rhule let his team down. To leave that guy in the game after he fumbled 2 snaps, just fumble snaps, and then threw an interception in the first half, you have to bench him. You cannot. Think about what that team was going through. That defense is playing lights out in the first half. They scored, I think, 1 touchdown before the second half. And that's as good as you can ask that Nebraska defense to play. They did a darn good job out there. And then you leave a quarterback in there that's turning the ball over and taking everything they're doing on defense to keep Colorado in this game and giving them more and more opportunities for an offense that really don't need your help. Like, that offense is really good. You don't need to give them the ball back 4 times. It's really mind-boggling to me that they stuck with Jeff Sims for that whole game. When you do that, you're not helping anyone. You're not helping him develop because he's clearly rattled and needs to come to the sideline, get his head straight, maybe at least for a little while, pull him out and let him pull his head out. And then give that backup a chance. Well, that backup, they're all there. I think they were all transfers. Give those guys an opportunity to play. But the main thing to me was, what's the rest of that team going to be like? What are they feeling on the sideline when you're putting a quarterback in a game that is really ineffective, can't push the ball down the field? He had 1 long run, and by the way, it was a spectacular run. He had 1 long run for a touchdown, and good for him, but he's a quarterback. And you're not developing him, and you didn't get an opportunity to anybody else to show that you've done any development with them. That team, when you have a team where you're not confident in your quarterback, it's an entirely different vibe. I don't know how much football you played if you're watching this, but if you know there's a play that needs to be made by your quarterback, and you know your quarterback doesn't have it in him, that you feel like you don't have a chance. That we're eventually going to need to make a big play, and we don't have somebody behind the center that can make that play. Same thing when you got a wide receiver that can go out there and make it happen for you. You go into a different to game situations and like strategy and situations where you know you can throw it up to somebody and they're going to come down with it. When you know you have a quarterback that's accurate, you have a different kind of confidence in your team. That offensive line, that team, that entire team must have been looking at Jeff Sims like boo boo fool. Like, bro, why are you here? Why are you in there? They must have been looking at their head coach like, why are you leaving this dude in the game? We got a chance to be in this game. It's a hostile environment. Everything's against us. We're in here fighting our tails off, and you got Jackhole over here giving the ball away. And it probably crushed Jeff Sims' confidence. Like, that poor kid had to go back out there over and over again. Now, mind you, when you play quarterback, I know the guys want the ball. I know that there's something that they live for, and they never want the ball taken out of their hand. But that's your job as a head coach, is to know. I always want my players to play. It's your job to know when they can't play. And I don't know what the benefit was of you leaving Jeff Sims in that game to make sure that your team did not get back in the game and embarrass him and not give an opportunity to those players that also worked really hard, those other quarterbacks who really could have used that opportunity to show what they could do. So, as far as Deion Sanders, this player talked about that Nebraska disrespected them, I didn't really see that. I don't know if that was just like one bulletin board material. Matt Rhule took a few shots during the summertime about like, we don't need to video record everything we do. And that's one of the things that really irks college coaches about Deion, is that Deion, he is showing. He doesn't talk trash about other teams. He's just really, really confident in himself and his players and their ability to execute the training and the preparation that they have done. You don't ever really talk about, even when he played, people don't realize that. Yeah, he was showy, he talked a lot, but he wasn't really talking about anybody else. He was just talking about how confident he was in himself and his own abilities, and he's really passed that on to his players. But a lot of people in the media and a lot of people in college football do not like the fact that he's really successful. I'm not going to play the race card. That's just not my thing. For me, it's the fact that what he did in the transfer portal really rankles a lot of people. And we're going to talk about that in another video. But these are two new head coaches. They both took over the program relatively late in the game in the coaching hire circle. And one person went deep into the transfer portal and made good decisions as to the personnel he was going to pick up, put together a really good staff, and is successful right away. Matt Rhule didn't do that. And I'm telling you right now, a lot of fan bases, a lot of administrations and boosters, what Deion Sanders is doing right now is making a lot of people nervous. A lot of people nervous. For him to come in and do what he did, that's now going to be, people are going to be looking at that going, listen, I know what we said about like, yeah, the kids and they're like, we want to win. We want to win, and you have an opportunity to clean house now. For those of you who don't know that rule where you can just fill your roster with transfers the year you come in. Like I think I mentioned this in another show. When another new coach comes in, a lot of times kids like to transfer. They're like, I played for this coach, I played for this staff. Now there's a new person coming in. I don't know this guy. I want to go explore my options. Then that staff they had a recruiting class that was coming in. Well, that recruiting class, if they have options, what if they don't like the guy that's coming in? What if they want to look at like, I don't know who your coach is going to be now, I'm out. So like what happened with my son when he was at Kent State, the head coach leaves, that was a 24-person freshman class. By the time it was done, it was only 12. And so they ended up taking the rest as transfers. So in order to fill your roster up, your first year, they allow you to take all the transfers you want. So great, but what Deion ended up doing is saying, like, the fewer kids I have from a team that was really bad, the more kids I can take out of transfer portal. So he just kind of encouraged a group of kids, like, hey, man, you can't play. He did it with all of them, but he did it with a good enough number that now, like, great, I can go 1 for 1, and those kids that left, I can go in transfer portal and take more out. Colleges are going to see what Deion did, and they're going to want the new incoming coach to do the same thing. If they don't, they're not real smart. If your team is bad enough that you need to fire the coach, the players are bad enough that they're probably not Power 5 players. And they probably need to go too. I understand they're kids. I understand they're not kids. I hate when they say that. They're not kids. They're adults. They're adults. And now the fact that you're being compensated, these kids live really well, you need to do a job. And that is what it is now. When you're talking about money, especially the way these kids are starting to get paid now, it is a job. And you're expected to perform. So the same way that coaches could leave anytime they want to for a better job, now kids can leave to get a better position, draft position, better education opportunity, NIL opportunity someplace else. So now, just as the coaches can get fired, that means the kids can get fired too. You wanted the money. Okay, everything comes, good and bad. So when some people are making a lot of money, that also means that some people are going to be asked to move on when a new coach comes in. It's not all sunshine and rainbows when you decide to get into the college football game. It's not all fun. I love college football, but it ain't all great. It really isn't. So hats off to Colorado. Nebraska's got a lot of work to do. Got to bench Jeff Sims. Holy crap. Colorado follows up with Colorado State next week. That should be an absolute cakewalk. I would expect Deion Sanders to probably throw for about 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, take him out of the game, see what the backups got. No reason to blow them dudes out. So, interested to see what's going to happen. I think after that, they go to Oregon, and that's going to be really interesting. Oregon had to go into, I want to say, double or overtime to beat Texas Tech. So, Pac-12, yeah, they got great offenses. They don't have no great defenses up there. So that's going to be an interesting shootout. Shedeur Sanders versus Bo Nix. Can't wait to see it. That's my time. I'm out.